Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike and in this old video, we're gonna look at what happened 30 years ago. A horrific unsolved crime in the city of Las Cruces, New Mexico. On a morning in early February 1990, two men broke into the Las Cruces Bowl. 7 people were shot, part of the building was burned down, and that's kind of all we know. So what kinda seems to be maybe a robbery gone wrong, well, we're not exactly sure on that because there's a lot of unanswered questions in this case. So, let's look into it, you and I. Yeah, this will be a fun one.
You're entering a world of pain.
So, what are we waiting for? Las Cruces is a city in southern New Mexico, the second largest after Albuquerque. It's about 41 miles from the Mexican border. Today it has a population of just over 100,000. Back in 1990, it was roughly half that. Our story takes place at 1201 East Amador Avenue, located more or less in the center of town. A good old bowling alley. On the morning of February 10th, 1990, it was a Saturday, so busy day ahead. 34-year-old Stephanie Senek arrived at the Las Cruces Bowl to set up for the day. She was the manager of the place and was also the daughter of the bowling alley's owner, Ronald Senek. Coming in with Stephanie this morning was her 12-year-old daughter, Melissa Rapace, as well as Melissa's friend, 13-year-old Amy Hauser. Melissa and Amy, although they were quite young, they would supervise the bowling alley's daycare center. It was 8 a.m. Stephanie was in the manager's office getting documents ready for today, checking the receipts from last night. Just preparing to open. They opened at 9 a.m. And Melissa and Amy, they were just hanging out with Stephanie, roaming around the place, hanging out in her office. Also in the building was Ida Holguin, the cook. She was there preparing the kitchen and getting snacks ready for the day. Bowling is hungry work.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
At around 8:15 a.m., Stephanie's brother Steve, he popped by. See, he had been working there, he also worked there, and he had been there the previous night. And he had left his backpack there, so he just popped by, let me get it. When he arrived to get his backpack, he was surprised that the front doors were open. Stephanie had left the front door open, and he actually said this to Stephanie as he was getting his stuff. And when he was walking out, he saw 2 Hispanic men walking towards the front of the building, one of them carrying a briefcase. And this is when the shit hits the fan. At around 8:20 a.m., these 2 men stormed into Las Cruces Bowl. Neither of them were wearing gloves or a mask. They obviously didn't give a shit if they were recognized or not. Both of them were armed with handguns. And the 2 men forced the 4 women, Stephanie, Melissa, Amy, and Ida, into the manager's office. The men would be described as being Hispanic, with one appearing to be in his late 20s, early 30s, and the other in his late 40s, early 50s. One spoke English with a slight Spanish accent, the other with no real accent at all. They demanded the women to lie on the floor. Now, they said they'd let them all go if they got what they were after, which is weird because they didn't really give a shit about being seen. I guess that's a hint that they weren't staying in Las Cruces for long. The border was about an hour's drive away. So the 2 lads, they started looking around the office, as if they were looking for something in particular. And when it appeared that they couldn't find what they were looking for, they then decided, hey, the safe, that looks alright, let's get it. Stephanie, the manager, was the only one with access to it. She opened it for them and they took what's estimated to be between $4,000 and $5,000. Though interestingly, they didn't take all the money that was in the safe. It's as if the robbery of the safe, which you would think would be the main thing, was almost an afterthought. I guess they still couldn't find what they were looking for. Regardless, the 2 guys, they gathered up all the cash. They were getting ready to haul ass when something happened. 3 people walked through the front door. Stephen Terran, the 26-year-old mechanic at the bowling alley, along with his daughter and stepdaughter, 2-year-old Valerie and 6-year-old Paula. Stephen had been unable to arrange any childcare for the day, and his wife was attending class, so he decided to bring them into work. They had a daycare, so I guess Melissa and Amy would have looked after them. The gunmen grappled with Stephen, and they eventually forced him and the 2 girls to the floor, along with the 4 other women who were already there. And then this is what happened. The two gunmen fired 25 bullets at the people lying on the floor. Each person was shot multiple times, including execution-style shots to the head. They then gathered some papers, put them on top of the manager's desk, and set them on fire, I guess hoping to burn the place to the ground and to destroy any evidence that they were ever there. Hey, let's burn this place to the ground. No one will know we were ever here. Thankfully, they hadn't killed everyone. At around 8:29 a.m., a 911 call was made. It was 12-year-old Melissa, who had been shot 5 times.
Emergency.
Please help me.
Oh, well, slow down.
We were all shot and hold up.
Okay. Where are you at?
1201 East Amador, Las Cruces Bowl.
Las Cruces Bowl?
Yes.
Okay, and there were shots fired?
Yes.
Oh.
All of us were hurt.
Huh?
All of us were hurt. I think I'm the only one conscious.
All of you were hurt? Okay, we'll get an ambulance rolling.
Please.
Okay. What's your name?
Melissa Repass. Please hurry.
Okay, Melissa, we've got them dispatched. Did you see who did it?
No, sir. They told us all to get down. They shot me 5 times.
Okay. We'll get them rolling, Melissa. Just hang on. Take a deep breath. We've got patrol units in route. How many people are hurt?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 people are hurt?
Yes, I think.
7 subjects hurt. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, Melissa.
It hurts.
It hurts? Okay. Melissa, I've got an ambulance and I've got the police officers en route. They'll be with you just shortly.
Okay.
Okay? You didn't see what any of the
No,
men
they
were
just took
wearing?
all of our money.
You didn't see what any kind of the men were wearing or anything?
No.
Nothing, huh? They just walked in?
Uh-huh.
Do you know if they were black men, white
With
men?
one black man. They're both black.
2 black men?
Yeah.
Okay. No, they've left. 2 black male.
Please hurry.
Okay. It's okay, Melissa.
There's a fire, too.
There's a fire?
Right on the desk. They're going to burn us up.
Are the men still there?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. They put us in the office.
They put you in the office?
Yes, I need a fire engine, too. Please help me.
10-2. Okay, Melissa. She said they locked them in the office. She doesn't know if they're still there or not.
The door's open. There's a fire.
It's on Amador, yeah.
Please
Can you
help.
smell smoke, Melissa?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
Can I get the fire
Fire
extinguisher?
department, too?
Yes.
She says she smells smoke. They may have lit the building on fire.
No, it is on fire.
It is on fire.
It is.
Okay, Melissa.
Can I go get
Stand
the...
by utility 1.
Oh, ow.
Okay, Melissa, we've got them coming, hon. We've got them coming. Is somebody there?
Probably my mommy.
Okay, Melissa. There's a police officer there now, okay?
There is?
Yes, there is. He's going to try and find you.
We're in the office.
Emergency services arrived at the Las Cruces Bowl in about a minute, and thanks to Melissa's actions and quick thinking, herself, Stephanie and Ida managed to survive. But Amy, Stephen and Paula were all pronounced dead at the scene, and Valerie died shortly after she was rushed to hospital.
Department received a call reporting a fire and people hurt.
The firefighters were quickly able to put out the fire, but unfortunately much of, well, any real evidence was destroyed. The police immediately spread out. They were acting fast. They set up roadblocks and were keeping a lookout for anybody suspicious. And though Melissa described on that 911 call we heard as the 2 guys being black, she later said that they were Hispanic. The police then coordinated with Border Patrol to help, set up roadblocks and that kind of stuff. Thought that they may be trying to escape down Old Mexico Way, which is not too far from Las Cruces, and the 2 guys were Hispanic. And so, as I said, the crime scene didn't really give much of anything. The 2 men were primarily in the manager's office, and after a fire combined with water from firefighters, there goes anything that could help you identify who the shit they were. They did find one person nearby who claimed to have heard them gunshots, and another who said they saw 2 men running from the bowling alley at about 8:30 when Melissa was calling 911. And of course Stephanie's brother Steve, who saw the 2 men walking nearby. And his description of the 2 men he saw would give the police their sketches. A short time later, Steve was asked to come to a police roadblock, where a van had been pulled over just outside Las Cruces. Other witnesses led the police to believe the two men legged it in a van. Inside the van that Stephen was asked to pop by to were 4 men who had thousands of dollars in cash on them. Steve, well, he couldn't identify any of the men as being the ones he had seen earlier, and they were allowed to leave. Ida would say that when the gunmen appeared, they seemed startled by the number of people in the bowling alley. Either they thought it might be empty, or they certainly weren't expecting Stephen and his 2 daughters to walk in the door. She was able to confirm Steve's descriptions, and she actually told the police she had seen them a couple of times before at the bowling alley, snooping around. Melissa, Ida, and Stephanie would all say it seemed like these 2 guys were looking for something more than whatever was in the safe. That wasn't their target, that just happened to be there. There was something else in the bowling alley that they were there that morning to get and were, I guess prepared to kill for it. Didn't seem like they found it though. So, rumors began to spread. Was this linked to organized crime, cartels, drugs? And the police began looking into the owner of the bowling alley, Ronald Senek. He had been in Tucson, Arizona, on a weekend golfing trip when the crime took place. And, get this, he surprised everyone by reopening the bowling alley for business just 1 week later. The blood of his daughter, granddaughter, and 5 other people probably wasn't even dry yet. But ran into financial problems later that year and sold the bowling alley in a court-ordered auction. The police would look into him again and again and again and again and again, come up with jack shit. They didn't find anything nefarious about him that would link him to this robbery, murder, massacre. In the following months, the police also looked into Ronald's other child, Stephanie's brother, RJ. He was a bartender at the bowling alley, and several tips had been received by police claiming that he was involved in some kind of drug activity, and he did drug deals at the bowling alley. Police did look into this, and discovered that he had a cocaine addiction. They also discovered nothing else, at least nothing linking him to what happened. Interestingly, less than a month before the bowling alley massacre, 32-year-old Salvador Lorenzo was murdered in a gas station he worked at in Las Cruces. He opened the gas station at 8 a.m, and 2 customers found his lifeless body in the gas station's office around 10 a.m. $500 were stolen, and he was shot to death. He was shot in the head. His case remains unsolved to this day, but despite some possible similarities, the police don't think it's related. It's a frustrating case with very little to go on. The fact that they were both there at 8 a.m. it's interesting. Stephanie Senek's brother Steve said it was unusual that the door was open, giving the 2 suspects access. It wasn't usually open that early, and they didn't open until 9 a.m. I think this probably gives it more credence that it may have been some kind of inside job, or that at least the 2 suspects knew someone who worked at the place. If it was a simple robbery, why didn't they break in during the night? Maybe it also had something to do with the backpack Steve took when he arrived that morning. If so, he's never said, or if there was anything spicy in it, that remains unknown. He claimed he was on his way to class when he got it, but it's a weird coinky-dink that he grabbed it right before they showed up. Likely seconds before. Though then again, they would have seen him walk out of the bowling alley with that backpack, so you would think that if that's what they were after, they would have just grabbed it then. The story obviously did get a lot of coverage in local and some national news, but that was it.
20 years have come and gone, but Ida Hogene's haunting memories linger every day.
It's still there. I mean, I think of it from when I wake up to when I go to sleep.
The Las Cruces bowling alley massacre remains unsolved to this day. Who the 2 men were, we don't know. Their motive remains unknown, and where they went remains a mystery. Stephanie Senek would pass away in 1999 due to complications from her shooting-related injuries, leaving Melissa and Ida the 2 remaining survivors.
The Las Cruces bowling alley shooting remains one of the worst crimes ever in our state's history. The business has since been closed for over a year, but officials are hopeful that the 30-year anniversary will bring new tips.
Throughout the years, our investigators receive calls periodically on this, and we investigate through. We still know that there's somebody out there. We still have somebody in our community or in our state or in our region who has vital information that they can probably share with us. But for whatever reason, we believe they're holding back.
Despite the ongoing investigation, Martinez Turan tells us she's losing hope.
Yeah, I know that 30 years, it makes it a cold case, but it's not cold. It's not cold to my family.
Martinez Turan tells us if police were going to solve it, they would have by now.
I would like to see it investigated more. It being close to the 30 years, if he does get any calls or anything, I'd like to see us become priority.
Well, it was never an easy case to begin with. If you remember the facts of the case, there were several people shot in there, and then the suspects started fire to the small office where the incident happened. And so Las Cruces fire had to go in there and put out the fire first, which covered up some of the evidence, unfortunately, and destroyed some of the evidence.
Police say evidence is still being tested at the crime lab in Santa Fe, and they believe that someone knows something. That's why they're still offering a $25,000 reward for information.
There was a certain amount of cash that was stolen during the robbery, and so somebody may have used that money for something. Somebody may have bought a new car, may have done something with that cash, and we need that information so we can connect the dots, if you will.
Martinez Turan says regardless of the outcome, she'll always remember her family, hoping that someday she'll see justice.
Just them living, just them breathing, just them being here hurts, and then the way they died. Stephen was a good man, and he was an officer, and he didn't deserve that.
The police say they're still aggressively following leads and tips. They're obviously not having much success. No arrests have been made, and it's very similar to another case I'm going to cover, the Austin yogurt shop murders. Age progression images of the two suspects have been made, which doesn't exactly give us a whole lot more. They kind of just added a few wrinkles. But it still remains uncracked. Let me know your thoughts on this frustrating case that gives us so little to go on. A $25,000 reward remains for anyone who can identify either of the two guys responsible for what happened. And it still remains to this day one of the worst unsolved mass shootings, massacres in America. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to watch some more of my videos, please work away. And I will see you, as always, real soon in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.